Hello, happy Friday. I can't believe we are here yet again. Sometimes it feels like it's always Friday, which is a good day to feel like it comes multiple times a week, even though obviously only once. Though this week is about science fiction, so perhaps there is a little bit of time travel going to be happening here in our future or our past. I'm Amanda from Blue Highway Games. Each week I join you live or on YouTube later if you're watching it there to talk about 5 games that we will be discounting in store all week long. You can pick it up in person. You can still call for curbside pickup or do some delivery options if you're watching this from farther away. So let's get started. The theme sci-fi is a huge theme that could cover across many years of gaming, since early board games or video games, and it is a whole world in and of itself. There are some people that probably only play science fiction games and have as many games as I do that are entirely set in fictional worlds that are going to be fantastical, more in the realm of science rather than in magic or fantasy or creatures and that sort of thing. So the games I have this week are a little unusual. I usually pick the new game that we want to feature and have on sale and build it around that. And I also usually try to find a children's game. I was unable to really find a great sci-fi young kids game. They exist, just not one that we had in stock. And also like party games, 2-player games, solo games. So I try to get it all encompassing. So I know that there are probably some people watching that are going to be missing their favorite sci-fi game that I am not covering, and that might make you sad, but that's okay. I may have some new things for you to check out, as well as some classics. The first one I have is more of a classic game. It's been around probably for at least a couple decades now, and it says 2000 to 2009, so yes, this is 21 years old, and it is Chrononauts. Our little sad library copy is well beloved and kind of beat up. I don't even think this is the first one that we've ever had in the library. We used to have the little square boxes. There's expansions that have come out, but it is a little card game that is very crazy and silly. They're from the same designers as Flux. I don't know if anybody out there has played Flux, but that's one where the rules are constantly changing. This one is one where the timeline is constantly changing. So you actually do set up a grid on your table of points in history that are going to be normal points in history, such as Pearl Harbor was bombed by the Japanese, so like real history, and some of them are quite, it's like a fun game, but I'm like, oh, I don't want to think about, well, I pulled out some of the nicer ones, like Reagan being wounded. See, it's JFK's assassination, but I think that's in there. So you set up all these points in history, and then your job is to kind of play a card, draw cards, and the cards that you play are going to maybe change the timeline. They're going to reverse fate, have things that are going to get flipped if certain things are present on the board, and then you have more horrible things that didn't actually happen in history that are going to happen on your new timeline of history out on the table. Now, if there are too many paradoxes, so I have pull a paradox card out, but there are paradoxes, so if I can dig through the box, that will affect the timeline and have, here we go, paradox. That might happen, that would come out, and when they get flipped, you're going to need to patch it. Those are going to be the cards that are in your hand. You are going to try to restore the timeline continuum, and there's going to be specific patches that need to be played down in specific places. Now, the reason everyone wants to do this is because if there's too many paradoxes in the timeline continuum, everyone loses and nobody wins the game. So it's not cooperative. You are still trying to complete missions to win the game, and you'll get mission cards that request specific artifacts found in history that you have to gather. But as you're playing cards and moving through the timeline, things are going to switch around and might become too volatile. The artifacts that you might have to collect might feel a little bit like Indiana Jones or something. Or like the Cretaceous Park, a rich investor is building an amusement park on a tropical island that needs live dinosaurs. Sounds familiar. But you need to collect a Stegosaurus, a Brontosaurus, a Tyrannosaurus, and a Triceratops. Or the Lost Ark of the Covenant and the videotape of creation of the universe, because that exists. You could go back to the beginning and take a picture. So those are artifacts that you might be collecting and have in front of you. If you can manage to collect the ones that you need from your mission, you will win the game. Again, it is not cooperative, but you will all lose together if the timeline gets changed too much. So you may have to spend some of your turns trying to repair the timeline. And that has been out for a good 20 years now, 20 plus years. It is 1995. It'll be 20% off all week until next Thursday, which is April 8th. And so we should have some of those in stock all week long. I'm not going to get that back in the box, so we're just going to put it over here. Moving on. The next one I have for you is a big box game that I learned yesterday. Now, I chose this based entirely on the title, FutureFuturopia, because I was like, that's gotta be science fiction, and it is, but it is the most different from the rest of these science fiction games. It is set mostly in a world much like our own, except the idea is we're trying to create a utopia, not a dystopia, and we would like to be able to have enough time off from working to just do the fun things that we like to do and rest and stay at home. So the goal of the game is to be able to get your little condo unit up and running without needing too many actual people workers to operate the machinery. The game is starts out, I didn't get all of it, there's a ton of pieces, it's a huge box, but you have I didn't pull it out. You have a small condo. This is actually not the starting condo, but it's got some spaces for some people to hang out. They want to hang out in this cool little art room that you have, or maybe you have a little kind of kitchen area, or one of my favorites, a little cinema. I want a cinema room in my house one day. That is a life goal. So you have these little units of your condo. You start out with a very small piece, and then you're going to have food generators and energy generators, and they're going to need to live beneath those spaces, but they have to be operated by those people. Your goal is to replace those people with robots, but be able to still power it efficiently so that you can run the food generators in order to feed the people so that they don't die of starvation in their happy little home movie theater. So that is the general principles of the game. The way the game operates, though, is one of my favorite mechanics, and it's not really like how it is in El Grande, but in a way, you all have the same 5 set of action tiles, and at the start of the game, they're all face up, and they represent, pull out different ones, but they represent different actions that you can take to run those generators, or to add new generators, or to build more condos, or to get more people, or to replace people with robots. And you don't replace them. They get to go be happy in their home movie theater. So you choose one of your action tiles to play on your turn, and you flip it face down, and then you do that action. And now on your next turn, you only have 4 of these tiles face up. Now you can pay some resources in order to flip those back up so you can access those actions again, but if you don't, or you're trying to play efficiently, you would run through each of the 5 different type of actions before you choose to flip them back up, which you would do automatically when they're all face down, and continue again. So how you plan out which move to take before what move is the fun of the game, and trying to get your personal condominium up and running self-sufficiently on the board. It's also got fun little food tokens, which are sort of nebulous little green things, since this is a Friedman Freeze game and the box is green. If you don't know, all his games start with the letter F and are green. And he has green hair and wears green all the time. So I've played a few of his other games on here, but so fun little food tokens, little energy tokens. It's bright and colorful. When it's out on the table, everybody has their own little units of the condo. Now, I should say, I played the solo game, because this is a solo-able solitaire game that you can play on your own. It doesn't change a whole lot of the mechanics of the game, which is why I chose to play this one, because a lot of well, I should go back to that. But some solitaire games change it enough that I would be confused in talking to you. But there's some ways that the market transfers faster, the way that you get money moves up faster, so that you will be getting those. It does have a very tight money economy, so you may find that you have to take out loans, which can be a little bit negative, things that you have to pay back. And I'm notorious in games with loans and ending the game with way too much in debt and losing spectacularly, which was not really the case with my solo version, but it was close. So that is Futuropia. It is kind of one of the bigger boxes that I've got and today, and it was normally $69.95, but it'll be 20% off, and it has solo version, and it plays up to 4 players with the regular version. All right. So I was going to say I was going to come back to it, but Chrononauts can also be played solo. I chose not to do the solo version because it drastically changed kind of how the setup is played, and I didn't want to confuse myself since it had been a while since I played the regular version, but it does have solo compatibility. Another one of my games coming up, the last one, also does the same sort of thing. But this one does not. And this is where I sort of had a fail. This is Influentia. And it's not a fail because the game is bad, but it's a fail because I like to pick a new game that's on our new arrival shelf to feature that will be on sale this week. And then I bring it home and play it, and that's usually the one I play. Well, I played Futuropia because I didn't know it. I couldn't play this one because it's 3+ players. So I didn't look on the box. So I have only read the rules. However, I can talk about it because I'm still excited. It's a trick-taking game, which if you have watched any of these before, you know that I love trick-taking games. And of course, I should have known it plays better with more people, as do all trick-taking games. Some are meant for 2, but it's not this one. So in this one, it's Italy in the future, and you are playing as one of the, I think they're corporations, and you have little identifiers, and you have a deck of cards that you are going to use to play down resources in sort of a bid mechanic, and there's going to be the influence resource, which is going to change throughout the game. That is the more powerful of the played cards. So if you don't know, trick-taking games is people play down a card, somebody follows, they're trying to play in the same resource type, the same suit. If they can't, they're, in this game they can actually play anything they want, but if they want to still try to win it, there might be a influence suit that they can then play down instead that would take precedent over the initial played suit. And then if they just don't have anything that fits in there, they could play something to just discard maybe a card they want to get rid of. And then when they assess, whoever has the strongest gets to take it. However, one of the things that might get changed in this game is whether a stronger or a weaker card would win something in an exchange. So that's kind of neat. And then they get to choose one of the resource cards that was played down and take it, or they can take a city card. Now, what we're trying to do in the game is control majorities in having cities. So there's these different city cards that, where are we here? That are, come on, here we go. Yeah. And they're Italian cities. So Firenze, which looks very different from the Florence that I visited once upon a time in the early 2000s. But this is the future, so you're trying to collect these city cards to build up your influence that you have in each of those cities to get the bonus of 5 points. And if you are the governor, an extra 2. Second place still scores. Again, you want more people to play this game. With 3, that third person wouldn't get anything, and then the 4 or fourth player would also get nothing. So you are not only trying to win the tricks to take the cards that are city or the resource, but when you take the resource cards, they have those symbols on the bottom that may not correspond to the same type of resource that was played. And when you can get a pair of symbols on cards, there's an action that you get to do, and it's in those actions that you can change whether or not high cards or low cards win the trick, or what type of resource is going to be the influence suit this round. So in your trick taking, you're also trying to think about the patterns that you can create to change the rules, and so on and so forth. Now, I also, not a little fail, but for those of you who don't want to think about deadly diseases, this does in fact incorporate illnesses and the plague. There are little rat tokens that might be blocking parts of the city, and you have to have the exterminator or the lovely little plague doctor here to remove that rat to fix, to be able to take that card to gain influence in that city. So that is Influentia, which is a 3 to 4 player card game that I have not actually played, much to my disappointment, but I someday soon, in a post-vaccinated world, may get to give it a try. So it's new arrival, and it will be 20% off. Normally it is $24.99, but it will be 20% off until next Thursday. Looks like we have a person in chat. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, please do let me know. Well, I only have a couple more left for you, and they're both on the newer side, though they're not new arrivals. They've probably moved off our new arrivals shelf in store. And it's new, but it's based on one of the older sci-fi board games out there, and it's called Cosmic Encounter Duel. So for those of you who don't know, Cosmic Encounter was a big board game that came out probably in the 80s, maybe even earlier, where you have an alien type, that race that you are playing, and you have a special ability card, and there's a whole bunch of little planets out on the table, and you are fighting for influence on the planets using the special wacky cards that you have in your hand to fight duels, as well as special powers from alliances that you can create with other players. So how does that translate into a 2-player game when you can't really make an alliance with somebody that you're trying to beat? Well, they have done a fairly good job of adapting it. It should be said, if anyone has questions about exactly how it compares, it's been a very long time since I played Cosmic Encounter, so I'm not going to make too many direct comparisons, just those vague ones. But in this 2-player game, you are still going to be vying for the right to control the planets that are going to come out with your little alien ships, and these wonderful little stacking ships that allow you to keep your table nice and orderly, but it still looks really cool. And so a card in the game will be turned over that is going to tell you what you're fighting over, which planet you're dueling over, and where did I set this? I organized it. It'll say like, oh, come on. Okay, this is embarrassing. Well, there's one, and it will tell you like a new planet. So then from your stack of planets, you turn it over, and then you're going to be fighting over that planet. Then you're going to look through your hand, and you're going to have some planning cards that you're going to play down, and you're going to reveal those simultaneously to fight over that planet. But before you do, you have to get your ships on there. And so you have these fun little, this actually does stand up on your table, and the one that is face up to you is what you're fighting for. So these are attacks, and you're saying, I'm going to attack, or I'm going to defend. And then, no, I was right the first time. Okay. I have so many rule books in my head, but you're going to determine the number of ships that are going to go out based on your little wheel. Then you're going to place your little influence thing. You're going to flip it, reveal to your opponent. You're going to add that number of ships that you have chosen to add between 1 and 4, if you can see that, to the planet. Then you're going to either attack or defend your ships that you have just placed out. And then if there's still some ships out there, you're going to have a card duel with those cards that I showed you that I've now misplaced. But you're going to reveal your numbers, and it's going to decide the outcome, and you're going to be able to place some reinforcement cards. There's going to be a little bit back and forth, adding more cards, trying to change the outcome. Whoever has the strongest strength at the end, and you might be adding to yours, you might also be subtracting from your opponents, so you're not necessarily playing on your deck. But when the outcome is totaled, whoever has the strength is considered to be in control of that planet. The other person retreats. That person is remaining there. And in that card that I lost, that I can't find to show you, oh, here we go. The loser, or sometimes the winner, will get a little bonus and a benefit. And it's in these little bonuses and benefits that the humor of this game comes out. And that is something I do remember from the original, is it's just kind of wacky. It's got cards that are going to change the outcomes, things that you're going to have to fight over. not wacky in the sense you're going to be standing up and playing charades, but just not controllable strategies. Something a little more on the lighter side, something a little bit more fun. But you're still making decisions. There's still things to think about. And it's not just complete random chaos. So it's that nice kind of sweet balance of casual fun. So that is Cosmic Encounter Duel, which is a 2-player game based on the original larger Cosmic Encounter. It still has some alien races in the that you will have out on the table that you are fighting for a friendship and allyship over those cards instead of other players, and so you'll be able to gain the benefits if that alien race is your friend, so you'll have a little bit of sway there. And the alien cards that you have, they're incredibly varied. You're only going to have one per game. Green is a little bit easier to understand, yellow is a little bit more complex, and red will mean you have a lot of different decisions and things to make when you're having those duels over those planets. When somebody controls enough planets, then they win the game. So that is, I didn't show you the one thing is you're also, whoever has the majority of the planets is considered the leader, and whoever's falling behind is considered the supporter. And to indicate that, it's probably one of the most unnecessary but yet cool token indicators that you have, just so that you know that you're not the one in the leader position, which allows you to break some ties, but the leader is able to turn over those alien race envoy help cards sooner and that sort of thing. So that's Cosmic Encounter Duel. And if you're a fan of the other version, but you find you only have a couple people to play with around these times, this is for you. It's definitely not one that you can play solo, though. All right, let's get that out of my way for the last game, which is It's a Wonderful World. Now, this is a game set in kind of a industrial future of Earth, and so there are sort of a little bit of steampunk elements. It kind of feels a little historical, and yet there's flying dirigibles, but it's not uber steampunk, so it's kind of creating its own future. And you are trying to collect the right cards to add to your nation and have a supply chain from those cards that you collect to be able to build more cards to try to get points off of those cards. It is a card game, and there are a lot of cards in the box. And you are going to have a hand of cards to start. You're going to be drafting those, passing them to the next player, taking their hand of cards, keeping one, passing round and round and round till you have all the cards that you've drafted face up in front of you, and then you all simultaneously make some decisions about that. So it keeps it really speedy, and you're not really waiting for other people to take turns, which is lovely. So I'm a huge fan of those kind of games. So it's like Sushi Go, but like more advanced. And so the cards that you turn over, you make decisions. Do you want to try to keep it and try to collect the resources needed to build it, or do you want to discard it and then take the one resource that is there because you recycled the card? So once everybody has made those decisions, they've added it there, they've recycled it, they've taken their cubes, then we're going to run through the center playing board, which is this, I can't hold it up, but it's a little arrow. It's going to run in the direction from the gray to the blue, and you take and assess each one in turn. Cards that have been previously completed, which at the beginning you just kind of start out with your base ones from your planet and some cubes you start with. You'll get more cubes, the gray cubes, but maybe you have one of these in the construction zone and you're going to immediately place those cubes. If it's completed, it immediately finishes before we move on to the next color on the list. So you're trying to think ahead, like how the gray that you build might allow you to get a new card that when is added to your chain when we reach the black section of the board, you'll get those cubes that might then activate another card. So while you may not have all the cubes you need as soon as that you've chosen the ones to keep, as you run through the board and collect from the previously built cards from other rounds or from this round even, you'll be able to collect more resources to hopefully finish more cards this round. So as the game goes on, you're going to have more and more cards stacked up there, so you're going to get more and more resources, so you'll be able to build some of the bigger cards even faster near the end of the round. This one might have taken me a couple rounds near the beginning of the game, but at the end of the game I might be able to populate that and plop it down real fast. So it is a quick drafting game where you are simply collecting the cards to then try to keep them or recycle them to get some cubes, to get some initial stuff going, to have a running system engine that you've built above your home world so that you can build up faster cards. Now at the end of the game, some cards don't have any points on them, but it was pretty easy to build because it only cost me 2 gray. But some of the more complex ones to build are going to have quite a few points on them, and they might be just points outright. So like 2 points there on the bottom there, or it might be points based on how many of the blue that you produce in your entire chain, but it's not going to be on this card, so it's got to be on other cards that you've produced in order to get those blues. So if I had that card plus this card, I would get 4 points for having those 2 blues on that other card. So you're trying to figure out which cards to take to get more cubes, to build more cards, but you're also trying to figure out which combination of cards you need to keep in order to score those points at the end of the game. There's a few more rules than that, but it's really straightforward. I think why I really liked this game when I first played it, gosh, back in 2019 now, was because it felt like a much more complex game, but in theory and in play, it is a lot faster. Now, again, this is one that has a solo version. I read through it, but because I haven't played the base game in a while, I didn't want to confuse myself because it's quite different from the actual game, because there's no drafting mechanic you can do with one person. So instead, you deal out some cards into selected piles, and then you're going to be choosing from those piles and kind of selecting from within them what you're going to keep and store, and then running through those resources to try to populate it. And one of the neat things that makes me want to now try the solo version, that I don't need to talk about it, is it comes with a bunch of scenarios on the back that you can do to try to, there's like, what, 6 scenarios there to try to meet certain goals as the solo player. So I think it has a lot of potential as a solo game, but I apologize, I didn't actually try the solo version last night because I just didn't want to confuse myself, because clearly I'm starting to get to that point with too many rules in my head. All right, well, thank you to the viewers that have joined us. If you have any questions as I'm wrapping up here, just throw them down, but otherwise, like usual, these are going to be 20% off through April 8th, 2021, and in store, and we do have curbside pickup available if you're still waiting on that vaccine. Otherwise, I know we're starting to see more and more people come into the shop. And on that note, I'll probably be only doing these videos through the rest of the month of April, and then I think we're gonna have enough people back in shop and able to come in and spend some more time looking around. Not yet opening up, I don't think, for playing, but at least be able to go through and talk about games and maybe even have some out for people to look at as things start to move forward. I'm not going to say get back to normal because I think that's still a ways away. So thank you for joining me. I will be here for the next few weeks with some other new stuff that we can get for discounts, but thank you very much for joining me, and have a wonderful weekend here in Seattle.